This is to explain what the MoD spends to provide and sustain military capability. In the financial year which ended the 31st of March 2015, the MoD spent approximately £19.6 billion with third parties on a wide variety of products and services. This amounts to between 40 and 45% of total government spend with third parties. In the same financial year, direct spend with small and medium enterprise companies amounted to £832 million, with over 7,000 different SMEs. But this doesn't include any business that SMEs have as Tier 1 or Tier 2 suppliers. Looking at the same financial year, the MoD placed approximately 2,000 new contracts. 60% of those were valued at less than £100,000. We have current contracts with over 7,500 contractors and over 1,000 commercial staff in our acquisition teams placing tenders and contracts. The MoD's procurement policy is obtaining value for money through a combination of things like whole life costs, performance, delivery and quality. The approach we try and take is we try and give companies a reasonable opportunity to bid for MoD work, irrespective of their size or location. We have to exercise impartiality and consistency in our dealings with all companies. We have to respect any commercial confidentiality aspects, abide by the EU public procurement regulations where appropriate, and also advertise our tender and contract requirements. Competition is the preferred procurement route wherever feasible and possible, and where appropriate we'll use vendor assessment and pre-qualification techniques. Prospective bidders are normally limited to around 6. In terms of tender criteria, the MoD will look for evidence of third-party quality assurance certification, normally to BS, ISO 9000 or 9001 or equivalent for the majority of our requirements. Evidence that companies are financially sound, so for example they'll have to submit their last 2 or 3 annual report and accounts. A little bit of background about their capability, capacity, evidence of similar work they've undertaken with other customers, and also they have to demonstrate they can comply with the technical requirements which should be set out in the specifications. In terms of supplier selection, we'll seek expressions of interest from industry. We'll use pre-qualification questionnaires normally for our requirements over £100,000. There will be an objective evaluation of all the relevant factors, but also the MoD is encouraging approaches from consortia of small companies that may be better able to offer a solution and accept the risk than individual SMEs. But in doing so, the MoD requirement will be for a consortium to have a proper legal identity as a basis for receiving a contract. In terms of contract award criteria, our procurement teams were looking for evidence of technical and contractual compliance. In the vast majority of cases, there'll normally be a clear-cut decision on who's going to be awarded the contract. If companies are unsuccessful, they can ask for a debrief. Please do so. You can hopefully get some helpful feedback on an aspect or aspects of your tender, which may be helpful the next time you tender. The MoD's commercial toolkit, which is available via the acquisition system guidance, gives a little bit of background about some of the terms and conditions, DEFCONs and DEFForms, which will appear in the vast majority of our tenders and contracts. In terms of advertising the MoD's requirements, all our competitive and non-competitive requirements, which are deemed to be warlike or non-warlike, are advertised online and free of charge on the Defence Contracts Online portal for our requirements over £10,000. The Defence Contracts Online portal can be accessed via the www.contracts.mod.uk website. Also, all the MoD's requirements which meet the relevant criteria are also advertised in the Official Journal of the European Union and also the Contracts Finder portal, as well as the MoD Defence Contracts Online portal. The MoD doesn't currently advertise requirements valued below £10,000 centrally. These are normally dealt with by our Army, Navy, RAF bases and barracks, which can quite often go out and buy these lower value requirements locally. The next few sections are just going to explain the sections of the Defence Contracts Online portal and how they work. The first section is what's called the Contract Notice section. This is where our procurement teams come out and give advance notification. They're more than likely going to be coming out to tender, probably in the next 2 or 3 months. It'll give a brief summary of the requirements and a deadline for expressions of interest. For all our requirements over £100,000, there will be a link to the online dynamic PQQ, which you can be accessed from the Contract Notice section. This allows the MoD commercial staff to create an electronic pre-qualification questionnaire and will allow suppliers to express an interest in the requirement by completing the dynamic PQQ online. And by combining the 2 parts, it will save about 28 days. The next section is called the Contract Bidders Notice section, and this coincides with the issue of tenders. In this section, we will list the names and the contact details of the companies who have been invited to tender, so that companies who may not be able to bid for the overall requirement can approach those that are in the running for the prime contract at the tender stage in the event that they win the contract. Once the contract has been awarded, it's advertised for a third time in the contracts awarded section with the name and contact details of the successful company. Also on the same portal is the Supplier Information Database. This allows companies to submit their company profiles free of charge. They can update them free of charge if they wish to do so. It's available as one of the resources for our acquisition teams to help them draw up a tender list. Over 8,000 companies have submitted the profiles onto the SID, but it is not an approved suppliers list, and by logging your profile onto the Supplier Information Database, it doesn't guarantee that companies will be invited to tender, but it's a way of showcasing companies' profiles to the wider MoD acquisition community. The Defence Supplier Service, the small team that I run, is part of a larger team called Supplier Relations team. Our function is to act as the focal point in MoD to give advice and guidance to companies who wish to sell to the MoD. We don't get directly involved in sourcing goods and services or placing contracts ourselves. What we try and do is we try and answer as many questions and queries as we can. If we can't, we can usually find a relevant subject matter expert who can relatively quickly. But also what we try and do is we try and signpost companies to the relevant procurement teams that may have an interest and possible future requirement for whatever it is the company can provide. This allows the company to contact those teams directly, to talk in a bit more detail about their products and services, and to find out whether those teams have a possible future requirement which the company may eventually be able to bid for. If smaller companies in the UK are interested in receiving free advice and guidance on exporting their goods and services overseas, they can contact the UK Trade and Investments Defence and Security Organisation small business team based in London. They will be happy to talk to you and provide advice and guidance. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and thank you for listening.